So, hello, and a very warm welcome to the Authentic You podcast. I am very excited for my guest today. We have the lovely Courtney Ivatts, and Courtney has, I'll let her introduce herself in a moment, but Courtney is amazing. I met Courtney on TikTok, and one of her videos popped up, and I was like, yes, this lady is speaking lots of truth. And she totally gets like where we're at in terms of energy alignment and where the planet is at and the work that we're all here to do. So yeah, without further ado, welcome to the podcast, Courtney. And would you like to just introduce yourself and share a little bit about the work that you do?
Sure. I'm Courtney, and yes, we met on TikTok. So, well, TikTok for me probably started last year. I was doing photography, videography for a number of businesses here in Australia, and a couple of them wanted their TikTok pages to be updated. They wanted content on there because I was doing most of the Instagram and the Facebook. So doing their photography, videography, the reels, all of that. So I decided to jump on TikTok personally and start actually doing those videos because I thought I can't actually produce media that I don't know, like, how does this platform even work? And so I started telling a few stories because I saw that the stories were developing on TikTok over the dancing and the lip syncing and all of that, because I think it first came out as Musically, a music
Mm.
app. So yeah, I just jumped on and started doing some videos, and I thought, oh, people actually like the stories, and people started asking part two for this story, or part what happens then. And I just started the account just to try and figure out how to use it for these businesses. Well, fast forward about a year, that ended up doing really well, and people seemed to, I just didn't even know there was a space really for that kind of topic on social media, because Instagram just ended up being just more photos of like nice people and good looking places, really tourist spots. So yeah, then that just blew up and did really well. And here we are, we're talking. And yeah, so a bit about me. I am from Australia, as you can tell from my accent. I've done a lot of travel. I've lived in other countries growing up. South America, we lived in Chile. My mum and dad moved us there. Did a lot of travel around South America as a child growing up. And then we moved back to Australia. And travel is one thing, and living in another country is something that will always develop you as an individual, because you meet different people from different walks of life. And that really marked me. And one thing that marked me was the love for America. I met a lot of Americans and Canadians at the international school I went to, and I always vowed to go back to America. We did travel there briefly, and I vowed to go back to America. And growing up in Australia, fantastic life, as you probably know about Australia. Beach culture, island life, surfing. I'm more into business. And of course, I got into swimming as a competitive swimmer for years as a teenager and young adult. Then I developed into a swimming coach. My dad actually pushed me into swimming coaching because I finished my swimming career. And I didn't go to the Olympic Games, but I went to national championships. And I think it was a great transition for me from being an athlete to then going as a coach, because I could contribute to the sport and to young people in a very different way, but it was making a big impact. And so it actually marked me as a young person coaching young people, because I couldn't go out and do silly things like some of my friends were when we turned 18, which is the drinking age here in Australia. And moving on from there, it actually developed me to be a business person and think business mindset and how to make impact in the community, how to be someone who contributes and builds stuff. And so that was basically my whole of my 20s, all the way into my, yeah, probably about 29 is when we finished the swim club. And then I got married and I moved to America and spent time in California, built up a whole community over there, did study courses all during COVID, and then we came back here. So a lot there. We can dive into anything and everything. So yeah, hope that kind of covers it all.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that story, Courtney. Yeah, completely. Every time you talk about Australia, it's somewhere that is really fond for me. And one of my aunts, she's not with us anymore, but she used to spend half her year in Australia, and she'd always come back like full of life and vibrant. She'd go half the year there, half the year here. So Yeah, I love that. And I love that you've been to lots of places, you've experienced lots of places. And what I didn't know about your story as well was how you sort of accidentally sort of came across TikTok and just, was doing it for other people and thought, right, I'm just going to share my stories. And it was your stories that I saw and connected with you on. So the question I'm dying to ask you, I'm going to go straight in, is what part of that journey led you to the work that you do now? What was like your sort of aha moment or lesson or learning that you had that really pushed you into like the spiritual coaching and the clearing, the work that you do now?
Being a swimming coach, you're working with athletes. So you're working with, I first started with kids, so learning how to swim, kids, teaching them the basics. So infants, kids, and then I moved on to coaching primary school aged, and then I moved into high school, and then I was attending their swimming competitions. And my nature, my character is to push, to challenge people, I really get a lot of joy out of seeing people unlock their full potential. And that's something that really drove me to continue pursuing swimming coaching, even into my late 20s. And so that part of me, that really is the authentic me, is having people around who are inspirational, because inspiration really goes both ways. You inspire somebody, and their progress and what they take from you, it actually just inspires you as well, just as much. So watching a lot of athletes come into my program, because I had other coaches and we had a swim club, like Learn to Swim, all the way up to competitive national level. And I was watching a lot of these young people come through the program, and swimming and the sport is physical, but there's the emotional aspect and then obviously the spiritual aspect. And I knew mostly from people who I had dealt with when I was probably about 19, 20 in terms of spiritual concepts. And it's one of the earliest videos I did on my TikTok, where I had done the video around the meeting the alien lady. I'll put it out there. So I had questions. So when I lived in South America, the basis of the story is I lived in South America, I lived in Chile, and there were the stories going around that the men who patrolled on the mountains, the town I was in, like a big sand kind of mountains, there was a story going around that one of them vanished, and it was in the newspapers, on the media. And when he returned 2 weeks later, his beard was all the way down to here, even though he vanished and he had like just scruff. So everyone was like, it's like he's been away for 8 months. How did this happen? And there was all this like alien phenomena that was going on because, of course, South America is below America, Area 51. So I had these questions as a child, are we alone in the universe? And I have this funny story. My husband laughs at me, but as a child, I would sit by the window and play like these sounds on my keyboard, like a little kid's keyboard. And I would think like these frequencies are going to reach out into space. But what's such a strange thing for like an 8 or 9-year-old to think. But I always knew that there was something more, there was something greater. And then I was really confronted with that when I was 19, and I started dating a guy. It was the first boyfriend I dated. And when you are in a relationship with somebody the first time, you start to realize, oh, not everybody thinks the same as you. Not everybody has the same family background or family upbringing. Not everyone agrees on the same things. And so it was very, oh, this is different. And he had all these DVDs around like God, creation, all this, but he didn't believe in any of it. And I was like, this is a bit of a conflict. Like, you keep ordering these DVDs from this guy in the newspaper for free, and you think it's a joke because he sends them to you. I don't understand what the joke is, because that's what he's advertising. And then we end up having this conversation with his housemate, and his housemate had a mum that was into the ufology. Ufology is a study of aliens, and she's the head of ufology for Australia or Asia Pacific. You can look her up, you can Google her. I think she's still around. Her name is Mary Rodwell. So this housemate's mother ended up coming to my city, and I, through the boyfriend I was dating at the time, arranged this meeting, and I wanted to talk to her, get her ideas around aliens, life on other planets, all of that. And that was the biggest conversation I had for about 3.5 hours. Yeah, it was a big conversation, and there was things that she said that are true, that they are true today, in terms of the occult and what she was,
Mhm.
I didn't even know what that word meant back then. I was 19. And there was things that she was saying, and I now can draw the lines in between what she was saying and what I know to be true based on experiences, my personal experience and other people's now. So that was really the beginning of it all.
Amazing. I love that. I especially love the part as you as a child that really resonates with me. Like I always had that feeling of like there's more out there. Like like I had that real growth value in me as well. It was like I know I can create this life that's like bigger than this. But then it went beyond that of like knowing that there was more out there. And I can just imagine, little Courtney pressing the keys on a keyboard. And I just think that's such a beautiful little image. So it really sounds like that kind of growth and drive within you, and that curiosity within you is what has really kind of driven you forward into that space. So I'm going to get like, this is, me, I go deep. We don't do surface level conversations here, but what I want to get into the nitty gritty of that is kind of a bit like your lightning bolt is like in the background is giving me ideas, is so when we come into this awareness that there is more out there, and it sounds like you went straight into the deep end of this, so you went kind of straight into the space of ufology, aliens. For some of us that journey is kind of more through like the spiritual community, and I think no matter where we kind of start on that journey, there almost becomes, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, I kind of see it almost as like two stages of awakening. It's like the first stage of awakening is, oh, there's something else, there's like a higher power, there's something else out there, whatever that is, aliens, God, other things that we may have called on earlier in our journeys, which I won't mention. So that's kind of like stage one. There's almost like the belief in that stage one that everything is love and light, depending on what you've obviously experienced in your journey. And then there's kind of this stage two awakening of like true consciousness, I call it, where it's like, which is where I feel like you operate in that space of actually true consciousness, what's really going on in the world, what does awakening really mean, and how do we foster that divine connection, whilst needing to be aware of all these other things. So did you go through those two stages? I know that's kind of what you help clients with. It is, did you go through those stages, or did you just kind of blast straight into that second stage?
Yeah, it was, a lot of my life is really marked with acceleration. Everything happens at accelerated rate, mostly because I want to be specific with the answer. Is it a yes or a no? What's the actual answer here? And so probably going back to that conversation I had with Mary Rodwell, and I had friends at the time, one friend, I'd probably say she did believe in God. And I had conversations with her around that, like, what do you think about aliens and all this? But the reason why it accelerated so quick is because I had experiences in which I became aware of a spiritual struggle, a battle going on around me that I wasn't previously aware of. And so when I started to investigate stuff about like spiritual laws and who is God, like source, who is the master architect, and I started asking these questions, I had a terrible experience happen where I had two dark spiritual entities turn up, like actual manifest, and it happened twice. And they happened off the back of me having conversations with the boyfriend I was dating at the time, because he was very cut off to all of that. He did not believe there was anything else other than just the human experience. And I was talking to him about it. And then I was talking to a couple of his friends and a couple of my other friends who were probably not even, that was not their realm of thinking at the time. And so it felt like a spiritual attack, but I did not have the words for that at all. And so I'd gone to a few other people at the time. And one lady, when I do tell the story in the TikTok video, one lady who became my mentor, she was the one that helped me through that, because if I did not have somebody helping me and being able to give words to those experiences, what a spiritual attack actually is, I probably would have been traumatized by it, to be honest. And I would have been like, I don't know why this is happening. But it just seemed like as soon as I started authentically opening up those doors and like actually searching for it, that things started to accelerate in that way, in terms of like attack, but it also felt like I was getting pulled like a rag doll. Like I can go this way and ignore all of this, which I feel like that's what they want. Or I could be pulled this way and like take the blue pill almost. Is that the Matrix reference, you know? So, and it was at the cost of the relationship I was in. I'd only been dating him for 6 months, but you know, it was at the cost of that relationship because he was not willing to investigate that further, and it was causing conflict between both of us. And I'm not one to shy away from having a confrontational moment. I will still have that. I'm able to have brave conversations. And so that's what drove me further, is because I realized there's this weird spiritual conflict happening around me. Why?
I love that. That why question just opens up so many doors. And like you say, sometimes we need that mentor and someone that can use that language. So something I've talked about recently is like the bridge from like 3D to 5D and beyond. There's this bridge, and it's all very well and good saying just be in 5D, just be in your heart, just be da da da. But we need someone earlier on in that journey to use that language and to say this is what a psychic attack feels like. This is what this feels like, because if we don't know, I know certainly for me, I could see, like you say with the red and blue pill, there was two realities there. And one of those pills I would have taken would have led me into seriously labeling myself with a mental health issue. And not only that, but kind of falling into this trap of like, because there's another thing I hear a lot is like, oh, this thing happened to me. Oh, therefore that must be meant for me. Like the universe knows what's best for me, and this thing has happened to me. And it's like, no, like that is an entity, that is a psychic attack, that is not meant for you. So yeah, I completely resonate with what you're saying with that red and blue pill. It's like you have that choice in that moment, and you just sometimes need someone to bridge that gap for you and use that language, which is what I see you do so well, Courtney, on TikTok. Is like you bridge that gap, you use that language, you share your stories, and then people can resonate and go, oh, that thing happened to me. Maybe I don't have a mental health issue. Maybe I'm not going crazy. Maybe, you know, whatever. And then they start to walk over that bridge to be able to clear those things and then be able to get into alignment with their authentic selves. That's kind of what I'm hearing there, is that you're bridging that gap, and that's what you had, that's what you experienced, and you had that curiosity in you enough to go, no, actually I'm going to take this pill, this is the journey I'm going to go on.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And then learning, why do I sense things in this way, probably was the next step, because I probably I'm a seer more than anything else. But you know, okay, I can pick up things as a feeler or as a knower, and then the training then needs to start, because if we stay in the place of this is just happening and just the experiences, it becomes a bit jarring, because we don't understand, why am I picking up depression in the office? Is this mine? What am I meant to do with it? And that's the important part, where we have to have the training, the mentors, or the courses, or whatever we engage in, so that we can actually use what we have picked up to be able to contribute to the atmosphere or contribute to community in some way, shape, or form. And so I just thought, oh, maybe these things are happening to me personally. And at the beginning, it is like that, because there are attacks, or there's what I call delay, hindrance, and blockages. And the reason why they are like that is because what I term like the dark world wants you to stay in certain positions, whether it be of comfort, whether it be in a position of chaos or distraction, so that you will never actually think about what's actually my real calling, like where's my alignment place. And most of the time people get sent into your life. I see it all the time with teenage girls in young 20s. And it happened to me as well, where the nice young guy comes into their life and they start dating him. They go into boyfriend, girlfriend land. And they were asking all these questions beforehand. And then this massive distraction comes along and they get into that kind of world, and then they forget about all these questions. So I think it's better to start asking these questions and start thinking about not just the who am I. I think that question almost has become so taboo, because it's just like we hear it constantly. But what kind of contribution can I have to the world locally, or is it to my state? Is it to my nation? Is it to a people group? And that's another important factor. What do we have to contribute to our people groups? Like, for example, I'm Australian. I have, like, further up is English and Indigenous and Dutch heritage. So that's literally Australian, because the Dutch were here, Indigenous and the English, all three. So there's something that's on my life, on my bloodline, that I can contribute to my nation. And see, if you are shifting things, not just on a community scale, but on a national scale, that's a huge calling. No wonder, like, people are going to be attacked spiritually, because if you do succeed in what you are called to do, that could impact a whole generation. And so that's where I feel encouraged to keep pressing on, because I'm seeing other people speaking out and having their breakthroughs, and that inspires me as much as well.
I love that. So for any of our listeners, that question, what am I here to do? How am I here to be of service? And that just, yeah, I love that awareness of, like, okay, what am I here to do? What's my purpose here? Wow, okay, this is big. I can't not do this now. So I need to clear and heal those things that are, bringing me out of alignment, so I can get in alignment, so I can do that work that I'm here to do. That completely resonates. And I think that will resonate with a lot of our listeners as well. So what would you say if you were to give, we'll say between 1 and 3, because 1 might be, well, we can summarize it in 1 to 3 pieces of advice of, what are some steps that people could take to get more in alignment with their truth when they have an awareness of, there is dark, there is light, there is polarity in this world. We all have free will, including these beings all have free will. What advice would you give to listeners?
Firstly, it's already in you. It really is. Like, your spirit, your body, soul, and spirit, your soul being your mind, will, and emotions, and your spirit is your true self. So the answers are already preloaded there. So firstly, it would be coming back to a place where, say, a lot of people have dreams, and then all of a sudden their dream life just gets suppressed. Usually it's because of a stress or a stressful situation, something like that. But there is a place, probably in your younger years, that you trusted yourself more, or like you were just acting as your authentic self. But somewhere along the lines, you have picked up all of this add-ons. Oh, this is going to make me more beautiful or more acceptable to people, or it's going to make me come across as someone that people would like to hang around with. So it's all these add-ons that had been attached to us that we've taken on over the years, because we're all trying to live, survive, and trying to thrive. So all those add-ons can sometimes be burdensome. And then coming back to, well, what am I carrying that I don't actually need to carry? Taking that load off, and then having somebody to walk through that with you, and to start being like a sounding wall almost. So that's important, number 1. And that person needs to be unbiased. It can't be like necessarily a friend, because friends got different kind of just the way they look at you, that may not like you changing. So that would be number 1, is just unloading stuff that you've picked up, all these add-ons. Number 2 would be your relationships and connections. And like, it just seems to be viral on TikTok. These people are not your friends if they do X, Y, and Z, and they're all jealous of you. I think some of that is true, looking at your connections and why you've connected with these kind of people. That's also a good indicator. And then step 3 would be coming to a place of rest. People really don't know what true rest is and what that actually looks like and feels like. And true rest is basically, like, when I talk in sessions, how to access, what's happening in the spirit. It's really just the other room. And so we need to calm down, just tune into that spontaneity, fix our eyes on that, and just be able to move in that. And sometimes that can be hard if we've got all these add-ons and all these things in our minds about what's that person going to think, or the connections, relationships. And that, again, like I repeated before, it was that boyfriend that I had at the time. And when I cut that relationship, that ended, then I was able to relieve myself of that add-on, that expectation from him, and to be able to move forward in the swimming coaching and all of the stuff that happened thereafter. So that would be the three.
I love those. Thank you. Really great. Yeah, really great. So I love that analogy of add-ons, because I think and this is that bridge again with the language, isn't it? Of something that people will understand. Like, you know, you go to get an insurance policy and you ask, do you want any add-ons? You go to get a coffee and you ask, do you want syrup? Do you want, obviously they're nice add-ons. We're talking about not so nice add-ons, but yeah, I love that language, Courtney. Thank you. That really brings that to life. And, you know, like you say, we move through life and we pick up all these add-ons. And actually, like, the truth is, we're here to let those go so that we can access, like you said, that authentic truth and that power that resides within us. But so many things in the spiritual community are taking our power away from us. But actually that, you know, pray to this thing or there, or, you know, get this power from here, activate it from here. Actually, we need to get rid of those add-ons so that we can come to that truth that has always been within us, and our soul knows the journey that we're here and we're meant to be on. So I love that. Thank you. So we're coming to the end of the podcast, and the one thing that although I think you might have answered it, but if there's anything that you want to add, the one thing I always ask my podcast guests is, if you were to give one piece of advice for being your most authentic self, what would it be?
Be specific. Be specific with yourself. And as soon as you have mastered that or developed that, you're always going to be able to be specific with other people, your situations, and that's going to bring clarity. People end up with a lot of brain fog, or not being able to understand their path or what they really want or what's happening emotionally, because there's been a lot of vague kind of ideology in which they've been living in for a long time, a lot of unanswered questions. And it could be just as simple as, does that guy or girl even like me? Should I ask them out? You know, these are the questions that you need answers to. And so for everyone listening, if you want to sleep like a baby every night, get your answers, be specific, ask the questions, be specific with yourself and other people, and that's going to bring more clarity to your life and other people.
Love that. Thank you, Courtney. Be specific. I'm going to take that one away from me as well. That's yeah. As someone who started before we pressed record, as someone that couldn't get her words into sentences for Courtney, so I'll take that one as well. Amazing. So I'll pop all of your details in the show notes, but how can, if listeners are listening and thinking, right, I want to know more, how can we find you?
TikTok's probably the easiest, really. Send me a DM. I try and do lives at least once a week. But TikTok, you can, I mean, it's all free. You can just go on the search bar, look me up, and go from there. That'd be the easiest way.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Courtney. It's been a real honor. Thank you for being my guest. I really enjoyed today's conversation.
Fantastic. Thanks, Gemma. I'll speak to you later.